Why, hello there. It's Chuck Martin. Yeah, I didn't want to do the additional introductions, but yeah, Chuck Martin from CGM3 Productions. How are you on this very rainy? I guess we got the feeder bands from the tropical storm that came up the coast, from this past weekend, and it was very, very interesting. It was practically gorgeous yesterday, and I hope you had a great. By the way, I hope you had a great Father's Day. And it's something else. It's very, very bittersweet. And I'm gonna, you know, do a little fun fact before we get into everything. Before this entry, it's like now I do believe 75th entry coming up, and coming up on my 31st round coming up this Wednesday. So wow, 31 rounds, still fighting, a little tired, but making it happen. Yet, little fun fact this week, as you may know, this week is a palindrome week. So palindrome in mathematics, you get to see it's almost like a reciprocal. If you go to a mirror, you see the same date. It's like today, 6/22, 06/22/26. Reverse it, it's the same way. So that's a little bit of or actually without the zero at the end, it's gonna be 6/22/26, and it's very, very interesting. It's a mathematic dream. It's a numerical dream. You're gonna have to wait until 27 for next year for July 20, July 2027, but June of 2026 and this week. So we're like in our third day of the palindrome. So it's like what's lining up. It's like with the moons, the craziness of the summer, and I hope you do enjoy you know, really the first official day, actually the second official day of the summer season. It may be, like I said, it may be a little bit rainy throughout the entire week, but again, we'll have our share of the nice mild temperatures, which is definitely 75 to 80. That's a dream, but who knows? Anyway, um, what's coming up this week? What's happening recently with me? Well, obviously, this week is going to be number 31. 31 rounds of chemo. And I never thought, with a great doctor suggestion, great doctor advice, I could only emphasize in one way and, with unconditional love and the way I'm talking, the way I'm speaking right now. It's very empathetic. It's very, you know, very soothing, very careful, and very comfortable. Because there was like, really, again, there's like this balance. You know, should I, you know, should I tell them or, the media ones that had that, have that link to cancer or not, and it's a very, very, trying process. It's trying, I'm doing what I can. And, I usually get confused. So I usually get the advice from others, especially, my relatives, and thank you for being there as well. Um, it's very, very, it's sad, yet we have to all fight. We have to make sure we raise the bar. We make sure that we get ourselves checked out genetic wise, because that little, like I said, that little lesion could be leading into bigger problems or bigger issues long down the line. How do we prevent it? Get yourself checked out. So I'm hoping by these wise words and the ones that you do know that already or your family history and it, automatically get yourself checked out. Because like I said, last year I got the lottery, and this is what's happening. Stage 4 metastatic pancreatic and liver cancer. And again, I'm fighting every day. Weight wise, phenomenal. I'm doing what I can. I'm eating pretty well and trying to get, into a future spot in my mind. Um, Starting to work out with my arms, with physical therapy, even like some private therapy, doing like a couple weights, a couple repetitions, get my strength back in my arms, and with a lot of protein. So it's always something, along that line. It's always a good fight, and never give up from that fight. Believe me, always raise the bar. You never give up, and make it happen. You know, Sometimes when you feel like you want to give up, you live out your days very wisely with a smile on your face, bringing out some good memories with compassion and caring friends. And as of yesterday, now I could tell you many people in my life that were either extremely sick, had a disease, having cancer, even it's terrible accidents. I mean, I could go all the way back to 1982 in tribute to Joe Bingham, Teddy Hudson, Meg Ryan. Great team, they're great students, great, people you know, in my life, even though we kind of picked on each other, even though they picked on me, maybe a little bit more stronger. That's how it all boiled down to it. And then, like, with what's going on as adults, to this day and age, from certain classes that really touched my heart, and we were sticking together, with Lori Matthews, Leslie Schofield, Leslie Schofield Wood, actually. My heart broke when that happened, and I started crying. Can't believe it. And then it hits closer to home with my own class a few years ago with Scott Bonnell, Bonus. And not only that, the amazing Allison Healthauer, Big Alice, we called her. Her passion, her love, her grin. Even I go back on my yearbooks and I start reading, little, you got this, don't give up, have a great summer, and most importantly, the biggest compliment, it's like, you're such a great guy. And, just with the support, and that's, how you want to be, reminded as, and that's a legacy right there. Go back to your yearbooks and go see what they wrote, and just find that place and time and build it from there, you know, including, and before I forget, chemo brain. Hello, um, Andrea. Andrea was really a good friend of mine, and you know that's three in my class, in the class of '86, and it's shocking. And then here comes the next, just recently what happened, and it started yesterday. Really started yesterday. I knew of this beautiful, young woman in her 50s. We're all in our 50s, okay? We grew up together, in these small classes. Now, keep in mind, my school, Tri Valley Central School, had like many, and how tight we were. We were very much tight, and we all had our groups, we all had our friendships, we all had our celebrations, we all had our um, you know, the amazing ones in life, and just hits you hard. You know, Obviously, I lost my mom 11 years ago. She's really truly my best friend, my angel from best breast cancer. Yet this really hit me the most and I knew her very well. In fact, I went to the class of 1985 yearbook and just looked at her, just said a silent prayer when the news came out because she was battling this, you know, the rarity or this, sickness, of the disease, and really he won mainly. So to the family of the McGee, Margaret, Margaret, we talked, through a few people like with and Catino, Darlene Purley, a couple of other ones. We always had a connection and said, so how's Margaret? How's Margaret? How's Margaret? I hope she's beating this thing. I hope she's beating this disease, and never giving up and never giving up. And then obviously, close friend of mine as well. And again, we've been, some of us have been, with the ties like this, and just, seeing her post and being speechless and shock. And what are you supposed to do as a cancer warrior and cancer survivor? You're supposed to, how do you release this emotion? And this is what I'm releasing right now. It's hard, yet you live to have a legacy. I'm going to start. I'm going to try and keep my positivity up. Sometimes when you have that positivity, it feels like the brightest light ever, a big light. But sometimes when you have days like the passing of a friend, the passing of a warrior going like this, it just it was quite a shock, you know. And I could always think about them, say a little prayer for them, and just saying, "You're in a better place now. Rest easy, rest in peace." And I guarantee it. Again, just a reminder: we're all going to mourn for a little bit, yet at the same time, we're going to celebrate their lives. And again, in the back of my mind, a friend of mine living in the area, she advised, she didn't advise, but we talked it out. And the best statement that she ever said, we're going to go one of these days. It could be a cancer, it could be accident, it could be a rare form of disease. And you said when you had enough, you could rest easy. And then, here comes the long road ahead. And then once you get to that certain point, to our classmates, to our moms, our grandmothers, our fathers, our grandfathers, anyone that you could think of, even another child that was your, part of the family. And they're going to all look at us and it's going to be the biggest hug ever. And I kind of look forward to that day. And then they're going to come and ask, including me and everybody else and all of us that we live on this earth, they're going to ask, so what did you do for the remainder of your time on earth? Did you mourn? Did you mourn for us? Or did you celebrate our lives? And again, like I said, there's a little piece about mourning, yet we live our lives. We're going to celebrate their lives. Have that drink. It's like, you know what? I remember sharing this drink with Margaret. Or do you remember that time at, so and so at a dance or at a function, you know, at a concert? You know, always remember the good times. We always remember on some things. So in easing that, you ease the pain in what's going on right now. You ease the pain, cry a little, just cry mourn, yet the biggest hug is going to come at the end soon. In fact, you know what? Hugs are free. You're sharing, sharing the same thing, and sometimes it's a good, if sometimes that hug leads to a couple tears, and it feels like a good release mechanism. And then you said, "Thank you for doing that. Thank you for suggesting. Thank you for doing. Thank you for being by my side during these tough times." And even, again, you remind yourself, like, good example, when Leslie passed away, um, Jennifer, her sisters, Jennifer and Tracy, sang The Rose from Bette Midler. But I knew Leslie in one way. She always loved um, the synth pop era. It seems like it was like progressive pop, or what you call it, the Duran Durans of the world, the Tears for Fears of the world. I mean, there was so many other bands, in that mix. And then obviously with, you know, as all, we say, do you remember that favorite song that Margaret, loved? Or what was that favorite drink that we'll have? It's like, yeah, we'll have the next one. And that's like, and I kind of, kind of kid around. It's like, hey, have an extra one for me, you know, because I'm always going to be there. Have that extra one for me, you know, enjoy it, you know. And it's always good in that therapy, whether it be going for a lunch outing or a dinner outing or a barbecue, and just being around people that you, that you can, convey the message with. In fact, like I said, this is a great, my way of releasing of it all. So, it's a really a perfect, perfect ideal, and I hope they get to hear it. So, in one way or another, I'm always thinking about, my classmates and the ones who have been there for me, and really all I have to say, thanks for being there, you know, and especially Margaret, thank you for being there. You were a tough cookie. You're still a tough cookie to me. You are a warrior, you know. Um, Even though some of the days, were a little tiring, like I totally get that. Especially 31 rounds. Huh. Wow, 31 rounds coming up. And sometimes it gets tiring, especially on Wednesday and Fridays. But um, but for the moments like this, puts you in that perspective. And it's like you wonder who's next. It could be me. I'm just saying, it could be me. It could be somebody close to you that, we're always allowed a limited time on this earth or on this planet. And you got to remember with this. So this is one thing I could tell you this right now. So on that note, we got number 31 coming up, and I had to hop on because it was mainly a tribute and a little part of me, remembering Margaret as vibrant as she can be. And to the class of '85, my deepest sympathy, my sincere condolences to a beautiful soul and the ones that known her. You know, you are, we're always the best. We're always tight. Yet, you know, Margaret was definitely true fighter, true warrior, her smile, and I'm honored that I got to know her. So, on that note, always remember, you raise the bar, and what we do in life echoes in eternity. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. And in recent days and whatnot, like what I'm creating right now. It's a legacy that leads to a legend, creating a beautiful tribute. And most importantly, when you get up every day and when you go, when you go to bed at night, you count your blessings and say, it's a win. Big time, it's a win. And most importantly, for my college professor, and hearing like a DJ would actually say, keep your feet on the ground, yet keep reaching for the stars. Dream it, do it, make a legacy that creates a legend. You know. So this is Chuck Martin from CGM3 Productions, wishing you a great week. Here's to to the rest of you all, and pace yourself. Take it easy. Just wherever you go, whatever you do, just take it easy. Get there safely, and always there's that love, that unconditional love. So peace, love, friendship, and we will talk to you later on. Take care.